You ever carried something you were too young to carry? Not just in your hand, but in your spirit. You ever hold something so heavy and nobody asked if you were okay because you were expected to be strong? That's what it felt like, growing up with nothing, but still would be expected to hold everything together. And in the middle of that was the standpipe. That cold iron pipe stick to a concrete base, water running like it never cared how tired you were. You didn't just carry water from that place. You carried the weight of being responsible, the weight of being needed, the weight of making sure that your home had something to drink, even if you were still just a child. And nobody said thank you, but that's not why you did it anyway. Some Caribbean yards had one, but most times it was out on the street. You'd wake up before the sun was up, barefoot or in worn out slippers, and bucket in hand, rubbing the sleep out your eyes, heading down the lane like it was a mission. Not because you wanted to, but because you had to. You thought you were just fetching water, but what you were really doing, you were learning endurance. You were building strength, not the kind people clap for, but the quiet one, the kind that showed up in life years later when things got heavy again. And let's talk about that bucket. Why was the bucket always too big? You could barely see over it, and the moment it touched your leg, ice cold. You bounce like the water burn you, and heaven help you if you spilled any on the way back. That wasn't just water on the ground. That was shame. That was a lecture waiting. You go all the way down there for waste the water. Look how you wet up the place. One splash, and it was like you flooded the whole community. But still, you went back day after day, because something about the standpipe made you feel important, needed, and capable. It didn't ask if you were rich. It didn't care what your house looked like. It gave water freely to everyone, consistently. And maybe that's why it meant so much, because when nothing in your life felt reliable, the pipe flowed. Every time. You'd hear the creak of the iron turning, that first gargle, then the rush, water hitting metal, and your hands moving fast just to put the bucket under there. Tilt it forward, then hold it still with a stone underneath, because you were engineers before you even knew the word. And that sound, the sound of water filling the bucket, that was your morning song. No alarm needed. And with this, you thought you were just filling buckets, but what you were really doing is learning how to pour into others. Even when nobody poured into you, you learned how to show up, how to serve, how to do the hard thing before breakfast without applause. And don't act like the walk home wasn't a whole workout. Arms trembling, water splashing, shoulders leaning like you're doing the bogle, if you remember that dance. And if you had to climb stairs, Lord, you became a prayer warrior halfway up. Please God, just let me make it up to the top. Please, I beg you. And here's what makes this so deep. You never realized how grown you were until years later. You thought everybody did it. You thought it was just life. But now, you realize you were carrying more than just water. You were carrying a childhood that asked for too much and gave you just enough to survive. And if this brings back memories, if you remember the early mornings, the freezing water, hit that like button. Not for me, but for that younger version of you who showed up even when nobody realized how hard it was. You didn't grow up soft, you grew up solid. Because when life asked you to carry the weight, you did. And it all started at that standpipe. You thought you were just filling a bucket, but really, you were learning how to hold pressure. You were learning how to keep going even when your arms burned and nobody was cheering for you. And it wasn't just a bucket, it was your first burden. And somehow, you carried it like you were born to. And maybe you were. Maybe God knew the kind of strength you'd need later. So he gave you that standpipe to train your spirit early. Because you weren't just carrying water. You were building muscles for a life that tested you again and again. And look at you, still standing. But let's not act like you didn't grumble. You ever try carrying 2 buckets at once? One leaned too far and whop, water gone. And now you're standing there dripping, trying to decide if you should go back or just cry on the spot. Or the classic, finally reach home, arms trembling, and somebody asks, why you never full the bucket all the way? Sir, if I full it anymore, I would die on the way up the hill. But then, there was the sweet parts. The people you met while waiting, the neighbors catching up, the jokes, the little break before school where you felt like part of something. You learned about life at that standpipe. how to wait, how to listen, how to make space for people's stories. You see, the standpipe didn't just build your arms. It built your character. It gave you space when the line was so long. It gave you humility when the pipe was dry. It gave you discipline when the water flowed too fast and you had to steady your hand or lose everything. Tell me that's not a metaphor for life. You didn't know it back then, but that routine, that responsibility was shaping the kind of person you are now when things get hard. Not the loudest, not the flashiest, but the one who carries what need to be carried, even when nobody say thank you. You thought it was just water, but it was teaching you to hold what matters. You thought it was just a chore, but it was teaching you how to endure. You thought you were poor, but you were actually being prepared. Prepared for a life that's always trying to break, but really could never bend you fully, because you were already forged at 6 a.m. with a bucket on your hip and the weight of the world on your head. Oh Lord. And can we talk about how Caribbean parents act like the standpipe was some VIP assignment? You full the bucket yet? No? Then why you standing there breathing? Let the bucket tip over, your life flash before your eyes. You weren't just a child, you were a water technician, apprentice, engineer, and domestic logistics coordinator, all before age 10. But maybe that's why we walk with so much strength today. Because we were trained in an environment that didn't take excuses. We were shaped by routines that demanded more than we knew we had. And somehow we delivered, because the standpipe didn't just give you water, it gave you proof. Proof that even in lack, you could survive. Even in exhaustion, you could continue. Even when nobody saw, you still showed up. So maybe the real blessing wasn't just what the standpipe gave you. It was what it awakened in you. Resilience, discipline, sacrifice, endurance. The kind of strength this world needs more of. And the kind you travel with every day. Because you didn't grow up with much, but you grew up with the kind of everything this world forgets how to value. So here's what I want you to remember. You're not weak. You're not less. You're not behind. You are built from hard things, but you carry them with grace. The same way you carried those buckets, those burdens, those early morning responsibilities, you still carry your family, you still carry your purpose, and you're doing better than you think. If the standpipe built you, type "it built me" in the comments. Let's remind the world that we didn't have much, but what we had, it made us unbreakable. Oh yeah, don't forget to hit that like button if you want to help the channel out, because remember, it's not just a destination. Because remember, it's not just a journey. Because remember, it's not just a destination, it's the journey.